My watch says it's the 24th of March, which is a special date for me because today, on the day, 10 years ago, I on-sighted the first 9A worldwide in Girona in Spain. I started critical. I was 19 back then, a dirtbag climber, just finished school and was on a climbing trip with friends. I asked you guys on Instagram to ask some questions about my ascent, about the route, about whatever you wanted to know. I haven't really got any material. There's no video footage. There are only a few pictures of me on the route, but also not very many. So I thought it would be a good idea to let you guys ask some questions and film this little video to answer the questions. Before, I remember one day before I started critical, I climbed a Muerte, which is 80 plus 9A, also in Girona. But prior to that, I've climbed only two 9As, which were back then San Cucay in Briançon, which got downgraded, and then the Fly in Romney. But those were the only two 9As I had climbed until then. So technically, it was back then one of my hardest routes. I did not study the route from the ground at all, actually. I literally just started climbing. I wasn't planning on trying that route. I was planning on trying something else. So I literally just put down the rope and started climbing. How clean was the on-sight? So there were quick draws for sure the whole way up, like in almost every hard route in Girona. And there were also a few tick marks because I remember a Portuguese guy was trying it back then. So there were, like, in the crucial parts, there were some tick marks. It is true that I did not want to try Estado Critico. I was actually planning on trying La Rambla, but I couldn't figure out which ones of the lines La Rambla was in the guidebook because it was quite confusing. So then I decided to try Estado Critico, and literally halfway up, I almost switched to Calea Barroca, which has the same start because I already felt so pumped, but then forced myself to go right and just give it a try and see how far I get. I just felt huge satisfaction when I clipped the chains, not because of the grade, but just because I was fighting for so long in this route and everything went kind of perfect, and despite that it was really close to falling so many times, and just being able to give such a good on-site try was really satisfying. So I was just happy about my climbing. I think on-sighting Estado Critico majorly changed my climbing career for sure. I think back then I would have not been a professional climber. I didn't even plan to become a professional climber. I wanted to go climbing for 1 year after school and then start studying. And because of the on-sight, I got more sponsors, more attention. I got a little bit more money. I managed to go climbing for a second year and then a third year, and then that's how my career really took off. So I think it definitely did change my climbing career quite a bit. I don't think you should try to plan a career as a professional climber in general, just because you also need a huge portion of luck. I don't think you can, as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, say, I want to be a professional climber and then make it work. Of course, you should have dreams like that, and you should aim to get to your goal, but it shouldn't be your only goal. You should always have a plan B. So, yeah, I think if it happens, good, and if it doesn't happen, then you need to at least have a plan B to sort out your life. From the moment when I set off on the ground to the point where I clipped the chains, I think it was more than half an hour I was in the route, so it took me quite a while to get up. I was at no point in my life until then I was planning to do a 9A on-site. I mean, 9A was the hardest grade I'd climbed, so it didn't really make sense to have such a goal for me at that point, and it just literally happened by accident. I had major problems on the route straight away from the start. The start technically shouldn't be that hard. It shares the beginning with an 8B+, and it's relatively juggy at the beginning, but for some reason I was nervous and I did some bullshit already at the very beginning, so straight away in the first few kick draws I got quite pumped. That's why I didn't feel good. For my climbing, this moment was quite influential, just because it showed me the potential I have as a climber, and of course it enabled me to become a professional climber and pursue this career as well. And as a memory, 10 years later, I mean, I still have vivid memories of hanging literally one quick draw before the top and thinking about not messing it up now. And I think, I think I'll never forget that feeling. Trying really, really hard and almost falling so many times and still making it. It doesn't happen super often in ONSIGHT that you get to that point. Physically, I just went climbing. I had a US trip over the winter, like the winter before, for 4 months. I just went climbing. I got back home and I think I climbed in the gym for maybe a month before going to Spain. I didn't really do any specific training, literally just climbing, and mentally, I would say my mental preparation was almost non-existent. I was quite relaxed. I didn't even plan to try that route. I never expected to ONSIGHT it, so I was completely relaxed and just started climbing. I definitely agree that there is a huge percent of luck in the ONSIGHT game. Of course, to some extent you can prepare, you can be fit, you can wait for the good conditions, you can try to observe the route as well as possible from the ground, but still you always need a good percentage of luck to actually, get the right sequence and be able to climb everything perfectly and not do mistakes or not run out of endurance. So yeah, I think it's always luck. I didn't really celebrate that much after the ascent because I was on a climbing trip only for 2 weeks, so my goal was to just go climbing. And I remember the day after when the news went viral that I ONSIGHT at 9 a.m. I was just sitting until 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. sometimes answering interview questions and then just went climbing the next day. It's hard for me to say whether it's 9 a.m. or not, of course, as I've only climbed it one time. I mean, there are lots of strong climbers that graded at 9A. And I think there is some new beta that was found with maybe knee bars and that kind of stuff, and also some holds broke potentially and got better. That's what I heard. But I mean, it was considered 9A back then, and it felt pretty damn hard to me. At this point, I'd like to thank everybody for sending in so many questions. It's really nice to see that the community is so interested. And I'd also like to thank my family and friends for more than a decade of support. I know without all of you, it would have not been possible. So I would say on to the next 10 years.